So the next question follows on from that, and it's related to testing. And the question is, how do you develop a testing process for multiple playbooks with differing triage and escalation levels so you can convince your stakeholders that your IR will stand up to the heat of battle? So over to you, Michael, on this one.
How long is a piece of string? Twice the distance from the center to one end, apparently. There's always a way of defining these things, right? Testing, I think, look, when it comes to testing cyber incident response plans, in my experience, a written plan only gets you about 50% of where you need to be in the heat of the moment. In my experience, the benefits of testing and running tabletop scenarios and all these sorts of things often is as much, if not more, about the team building and morale that improves as a part of actually conducting the testing process. You know, I've worked with clients where we've run tabletop exercises to run over their plan, and the people who are in the room who work for the same company have never met each other before. So you have situations where if you can bring those people together, and at least they can recognize each other and they know who they are and they know what their functions and roles are and they understand where they fit in to the incident response plan, then when the real thing happens, they have a much better fighting chance of being able to work together as a team. Because what happens as well in an actual incident is you get the best and worst out of people. You get the best out of people because people pull together, but you also start to see the people who are impatient, the people who get hot-headed, and there's all sorts of these emotional quirks that we all respond differently. Some people shrink into a shell and disappear, and you can't contact them, right? And so when you put people in these pressure cooker scenarios in these situations, you start to sort of get a feeling for that. You can start to deal with that. Addressing the question specifically, which sort of refers to multiple playbooks, different triage escalation levels, I think that sort of complexity almost sounds too overwhelming. And I think if you just, I think it's just probably just comes back to having realistic scenarios that people can kind of comprehend. I think the moment you start to overcook or overbake your incident response plan, there's a bit of wasted effort going on, in my opinion, because I think in reality, if you can just keep people to work together, stick to the basic process, keep the communication going, you'll all get through it together in a way that makes sense for everyone.
All right, Jordan.
The playbooks and testing and things like that, they're really useful. So there's incidentresponse.com. So they have playbooks for all sorts of different things, and you can find, there's one for malware, there's one for a data breach, there's one for a malicious insider, and it actually steps you through the process. So there are things that people are testing, but not all of it is going to be applicable to your organization. So, and when you are testing it, sort of keeping in mind that the people involved in doing the testing and their abilities, and not having, like Michael said, you'll end up with dominant personalities who try and say they've got the idea and they've got the way to resolve it. Whereas I guess the point of your exercising is to make sure people are understanding the plan and the process, is that you're looking at exercising your ability to identify an incident and then your ability to develop a containment strategy that is going to work. And that if you're testing, so like testing for a client, the ability to stand up the incident management team, and does that work? Are there people involved that are going to try and then dictate to the incident response team? So there's different parts of what you can test, just not the technical side of things, which is what the playbooks kind of move towards in a specific scenario. So I think staying with that, test your ability to identify, contain, eradicate, and recover from the incidents, and change it up. But the higher level framework is what you sort of want to keep with, not getting too prescriptive, because they'll never be able to prescribe everything that's going to happen.
All right. Mark, testing.
Testing, yeah, we got the most amount of success by having live facilitators, like purple team scenarios, and where we had experienced people, where we did bring together the teams, and like Michael said, that's the first time that actually dealt with some of these people in their date in the sort of the heat of the battle, and to do that under testing segments was great. And again, it was mentioned as well that it's great to have playbooks in place, but they're only applicable, like I'll go with the 50% of the time, but at least you've got a base from which to work on, and what we found was really successful is just having those facilitated sessions going, look, you're going down a rabbit hole, you need to sort of pause here, come back, and having that live interactive feedback sort of gave people the confidence and understanding how that patchwork of playbooks and incident techniques could actually be brought together in a timely response, and those scenarios have been really good for growing people, and because, as you said, yeah, there are some people who just withdraw into themselves and just get focused on one area, and that's where their strengths are not necessarily come to best used. So I think having those, we've found the most amount of success by having those facilitated sessions, and put it all to play again. Actually, why are your network diagrams not up to date? Where do you get them from? Can you get them now? What happens during time zone shifts, and all of those type of scenarios? That's been fantastic. So and like experienced incident responders can really add a lot of value to the broader team too, and when getting themselves ready.
Brilliant. George.
Yeah, look, I mean, I echo that as well. We have an incident response retainer that we have with an external, and then when that is thankfully not used, we can use that bucket of money to engage them to do a some sort of IR exercise with the IR team and other stakeholders from around the business. So we found that really, really valuable. We do that frequently, and it's been really, really helpful from that perspective. And as well, it gives you that sort of different point of view. So we have in our minds, and obviously through working with each other and sort of being how we do things, and then having that sort of independent view has really helped. And also the playbooks are useful, and I think as Michael said, that sort of basic process should be established. And then I think you also have to keep in mind though, if you have those playbooks in there, which you should have to some degree, that they need to be kept current. Threats do change. We think about ransomware. If the way back when it was, I think it was a Locky, and that was came through email attachments, and then that kind of stopped, and then it became business email compromise, and then ransomware came back, but it came back different. It came back through phishing and poor network controls, and then it became ransomware and data leakage. So once again, I think there's that balance. So you need to have the basics there, but they also need to be suitable. Because if I went and took a playbook from 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't be quite right. So there's a bit of work there. And I think incident response is an interesting one, because I sometimes feel like it kind of gets, especially like with playbooks and keeping update. I mean, there's obviously work involved in doing that, and so I feel like they sometimes fall behind, like by the wayside, and they may not necessarily be up to date. So it's worthwhile, setting a reminder in there to say, hey, better review our playbooks. I mean, you should do this with everything, but better review them, better make sure they're current, and that in the event that we do have a crisis, that we can actually rely upon everything, our IR plan, our playbooks, and so forth, and then making sure that they're tested. So, and that's a good way to make sure they'll stand up. And plus, the question about will it stand up in the heat of battle? If you get an external independent party to do that assessment, then that will be probably beneficial for when they give you that report and you give it to your board.